Platinum Games has been on a tear lately. Okay, ignore that one. They got some great fun titles over the last several years. The Wonderful 101, Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, and Mad World are fine examples of the company producing solid titles over the last several years. But their most famous title has recently come out with a sequel, that being Bayonetta 2. Despite what Polygon thinks, and despite my frustrations with certain aspects of the game, Platinum Games knows how to design a fun and deep action game. But what has Platinum done so well that has led to such amazing titles? Well, there's an aspect of Bayonetta 2 that I'd like to point out, as its brilliance in overall game design. A lot of games don't understand how to guide a player, or introduce the game's mechanics in a natural way. They either assume the player can figure it out on his own, or don't do a good job of highlighting the strengths of the game. But I'm not talking about just simple mechanics, but I'm talking about getting deep into the game's mechanics. You could easily teach a player how to hit a button to punch, to kick, to activate a special power, but it's a whole another thing to tell the player how to apply those skills. Fighting games are a prime example of this. Any old fighting game can bring up a command list and show you, hey, if you hit the joystick in a quarter circle from down to toward your opponent and hit punch, you'll fire a fireball at your opponent. The question becomes, when does it make sense to fire that fireball? What special properties does the fireball have that will give you an advantage over your opponent? It's what separates good players from great players, knowing when to use your tools to exploit your opponent. If you ever have a chance, play through Skullgirls tutorials. It's a prime example of how to show the player how to best survive and fight to the best of your abilities. But tutorials are only one way of doing it. How about in a single player game like Bayonetta 2? Well, this is something Bayonetta 2 does excellent, and it's all through one mechanic of the game, the optional Muspelheim missions. For those who haven't played the game or haven't watched any videos about the game, Muspelheim missions are optional missions that introduce a small objective in a combat scenario to the player with a reward of permanent help or magic upgrades. On the surface, it just seems like a way to give the player items for completing objectives, giving them a reward for doing a task, but that's only on the surface. It's what the player has to do, and what the player learns while doing it. That's where the true strength of these challenges lie. And let's take a few examples of it. Among the first set of Muspelheim challenges that you are given is the challenge of only doing damage to the enemy in Witch Time. For those who don't know, Witch Time is a mechanic they introduced in the Bayonetta series, where if you dodge the last moment of an enemy's attack, you are rewarded with your enemies being slowed down in time, allowing you to punish them with a barrage of damage, or allows you to reposition yourself to a better fighting location. So the goal in this is simple: get Witch Time to activate and kill your enemies. And that's where the brilliance behind these focused challenges begin. So walloping on your enemies with combos won't work here. Button mashing? Nuh-uh. You can attack them all you want, but it won't make a difference. So you have to wait for them to attack you. It forces a bit of patience on the player. Let the enemy come to you and hit them hard when they mess up. And the player, when completing the challenge, will notice something: that you hit hard in Witch Time and can do massive damage while in it. So you've reinforced this mechanic with the player, but it won't play into the main combat sequence, right? Wrong. A prime example is what you'll see in my Bayonetta 2 playthrough, in particular with a reoccurring boss fight with the Lumen Sage. Well, let's say the first battle with him didn't go so well. I wasn't thinking, was attacking without really any strategy in mind, and it resulted in repeated deaths over and over again. I finally beat it after dying only a mere 15 times, but one of my friends mentioned that most likely, if it's like any Platinum Games tradition, that boss will show up again. Sure enough, that boss showed up again. I sat down and wondered, damn it, there's gotta be an easier way to do this. Well, this time, I had a helpful reminder in the same level, as a lesson that was reinforced with the demon version of the enemies earlier in the level, that being the Witch Time challenge. So I went into the fight, realizing that maybe being more passive, let him coming to me, and then doing the damage in question during Witch Time was the best strategy I had. But what was the result? That despite him having more tactics and more range of attacks this time around, I died only twice to him, compared to the 15 times the first time around. And that's the strength. I had learned an alternate strategy to dealing with him, and I used it to the best of my ability successfully. I didn't have to do that side mission. I could have just skipped it, but doing it gave me a tool that made me a lot more powerful because of it. And that's the brilliance of the teaching tool Platinum Games implemented. Okay, so let's take another indirect example. Another Muspelheim mission type is completing the challenge in one combo, and only one combo. Not hit an enemy for a period of time, your combo is over, and you fail the mission. But hold on, all combos do is give you more points and multipliers. It technically doesn't give you a distinct advantage over your enemies, right? Except it does. Getting more points means a better end rating at the end of a section. A better end rating means that you'll earn more halos, which are used to buy the various items, skills, and add-ons in the game. So it's simple. Earn more points, get more stuff. So while playing around in this mission, you'll realize that through fighting, that your guns are the best way of keeping a combo going. That even if you're away from your enemies or they aren't grouped up, you can make your way to them while keeping the onslaught up by firing your guns. And this is without giving a prompt of, hey, use your guns to keep combos going, but by letting the player naturally fight through the mission and come to his own conclusions. You've guided the player to become naturally better, and the player will be much better off because of it. Finally, let's take a look at the last challenge. In this challenge, you are put up on a set of pedestals, and if you hit the ground below in any way, you lose the challenge. advantage. Simple, right? Except the enemies in question can take out the pedestals and leave you with less and less space for you to use. If you let them take out too many of them, you'll be left with little options and will fall to the ground below, failing. But okay, you still have to fight them in the regular way to take them out, so what does this actually teach you? It teaches you about how to make the enemies move the way you want them to move. You see, the enemies will focus on you and will attack you in whatever spot you were in when they started. So the pillars and how they are destroyed are ultimately decided by you, and knowing that, you can use that to your advantage. You can position yourself in a way to put the pedestals that you want to put in danger, giving you an advantage on the battlefield. You learn that you, Bayonetta, are ultimately in charge of your enemies and how they react to you. Yes, there's a theme in there for those who like symbolism, and you can use that to your advantage. You see, in the main story portion, unless if it's a portion that I haven't run into yet, you don't have a mission like that, but it's the lesson that you take out of it. Position your enemies on the battlefield. Know where they are, how and where to dodge will give you an advantage on the enemy. It's similar to zoning in a fighting game. Force the enemy into positions where you have the upper hand and punish them if they infringe on your territory. And in Bayonetta 2, you can do the same thing with your enemies. This is how you teach a player. There's absolutely no reason you are forced to do these missions. You don't have to do them at all, but what they teach the player and how they make the player stronger is the brilliance these missions show. And it's a fine example of why Bayonetta 2 is a fantastic game and why Platinum Games is becoming more of a powerhouse. They have some wonderful designers in their company, and you can be assured that I will be looking to pick up games made by them in the future. If you haven't played Bayonetta 2, you're missing out, and the Muspelheim missions are a prime example why. Hey, thanks for watching. If you have a chance, leave some feedback and comments below. If you liked the video, hit that like button. And if you want more content like this, hit that subscribe button. This is Dragonix signing off, hoping that gaming brings as much fun to you as it does for me.